Welcome back to the Writer Albert Lanier channel. I, of course, am the writer, Albert Lanier. And that's important to note because this is a special video. And as most of you who are subscribers to this channel know, I've done some special videos in the past, but I don't really do special videos for the most part, including one on someone who claimed to have credentials they didn't. And the only reason that I'm doing this video is I was made aware of an individual I'd never heard of before who calls herself Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. I didn't know a thing about this person, and all of a sudden YouTube was exploding with videos about this Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, who claims to be a psychologist. Not only a psychologist, but a psychologist who was a doctor of psychology. She actually said this in an interview. She actually said this when she was on, I believe it was a panel of people, row of people, in some video that was shown. Now, again, why am I doing a special video when I don't normally do special videos these days? I think it's because there were some slight similarities between somebody that I've actually written about in a blog I used to have on medium.com, a man by the name of Dr. Umar Johnson. Now, if you haven't read my piece, you can go to medium.com and look up Catch Him If You Can, The Life and Lies of Umar Johnson, which I wrote in July, I believe, of 2020. I believe it was July, but it was in 2020. Now, the reason why this is the case is this is another psychologist who is, of course, raising a lot of questions about not only her about her qualifications and apparently whether indeed she has the credentials or the degrees that she claims to. Yet another dodgy doctor in quotes. So the Cheyenne Bryant, again, this is somebody I wasn't aware of, never heard of until actually yesterday when these videos came up. I was like, who is this person? And so it's very interesting because in light of my having written and exposed Umar Johnson, I thought it would be interesting to do a video about this lady. Now, this lady claims to have a PhD and claims to, in fact, she stated when she was, I don't know where the video came from, but she had stated in a video that I had been in private practice as a doctor of psychology for, I think it was either 17 or 18 years. So she claimed, this is what she actually said on camera, on tape, so to speak. But when somebody online, I believe it was Twitter, stated that she was, quote, unlicensed and unqualified, which appears to be the case. Again, I hadn't heard about this lady until about yesterday, last day or so. She replied, this was actually, I believe, on Twitter or X. If it wasn't, I believe it was on Twitter or X. She said, and I'm quoting directly here, "I'm the most sought after psychology expert, life coach in the world." Now, does that remind you of anybody? Does that somehow remind you of someone? I think it does. Like I mentioned before, Umar Johnson. Umar Johnson stated that he was the most requested scholar. Most requested scholar, most sought after psychology expert, life coach in the world. Same rhetoric, same basic rhetoric, different con. The con in this case seems to be that Cheyenne Bryant is conning people to thinking that she's actually a licensed therapist, or is actually a therapist, or is actually a psychologist with a PhD, meaning doctor, who can treat patients, who either treat patients or have individuals as clients or provide psychological services. Now, the first indication that this person is clearly not who she pretends to be is the fact that she calls herself a psychology expert. I don't know about you, but when you run across doctors at hospitals, or if you see them talking online, say they have their own YouTube channel, they don't call themselves medical experts. Lawyers, if you happen to have one, you're going to trial, or you actually know some lawyers, or you see them on YouTube, do not describe themselves as legal experts. They describe themselves as doctors and lawyers. But this woman, who said that she was in private practice, she was a doctor of psychology, now, of course, is pivoting and saying that she is a psychology expert. What precisely is a psychology expert? Is a psychology expert someone who doesn't have a PhD but still is an expert in the area of psychology? Because actual psychologists with PhDs and actual therapists don't refer to themselves as psychology experts. You might want to check actual licensed therapists and actual licensed psychologists out on YouTube and see what they have to say. I don't think you'll hear that piece of verbiage emitted from their mouths or come from their mouths. I don't think you'll hear that. But she's not apparently someone with a PhD. Now let's get to the PhD. Now, there were questions apparently about this woman's PhD. They didn't think that she had a PhD. And based on the way that she behaves and the way she speaks and the way she carries herself, I can understand why people don't believe that she had a PhD in psychology. Now, this Cheyenne Bryant, we wouldn't want her to get upset now, would we? Don't want to get her name wrong. Of course, she's gone and said that she was a therapist. Now she says she hasn't. She's gone and said she's a doctor of psychology, but now claims simply to be a psychology expert. But we don't want her to get upset because you got her name wrong, or I got her name wrong. In any event, there are questions about her PhD, which she claims. Now, apparently, she went on a show called The Breakfast Club and stated that she had been in a program and attended and gone through a program, I guess it was a doctoral program for psychology at Argosy University. Now, Argosy University no longer exists, and she mentioned that. She mentioned when she was trying to get transcripts in order to get a job teaching at a law school. Now, I don't know about you, and I'm not an expert in the matter. I'm not a legal expert. Don't hear me say I'm a law expert, but I'm not aware that law schools have PhDs in psychology teaching at their school. Is that a thing? Let me know. I've never heard of it. But anyway, she said she was getting a job or trying to get a job. Maybe she was getting a job providing therapy or something at this supposed law school. I don't know. But she was trying to get her transcripts in order to get hired. And according to Cheyenne Bryant, she found out that Argosy University had shut down, which of course is the case. And she was then trying to get her transcripts. And she was told that there was a third-party vendor or third-party company that had these transcripts. When she contacted them, this party stated, no, sorry, can't do it. Sorry, 2 years have passed, so you can't get the transcripts. Then she goes and says that she had already downloaded transcripts, I guess, including, I don't know, her doctoral dissertation. So the story doesn't add up. The problem is that there is a third party company called Parchment, and they have records for Argosy University graduates, I believe, which she claimed to be. But these don't last for 2 years, from what I understand, and she could have got records of it. But here's the interesting part. So people don't think that she has a PhD. And she was on a local Fox show. I don't know the city, but on a Fox show where the reporter adroitly said, why don't you ask her about this? And at one point said, why don't you drop the doctor from your name? And she said, well, because I earned it. And she doubled down. She earned it. This is her degree. It's only right. By the way, if you get to see that interview, take a look at it. Now, again, I don't know this woman. I didn't know anything about this woman. So before I move on and before I wrap this up, I want to say this about this lady. Like I said, I don't know her. I didn't know anything about her until this whole affair blew up, and that's when I started looking into her a little. And I have to be brutally honest. I don't know why anyone in their right mind would think that this woman was a psychologist or had a PhD. She wears tacky jewelry. Her dress that I've seen, not always in the 3 or 4 times I've seen her do interviews, as of yesterday, the 3 or 4 times I've seen her do interviews, some of her clothing is blatantly unprofessional. If it's an informal setting, yes, but you're conducting yourself as a PhD, you're presenting yourself as a doctor of psychology. So if you dress like a stripper, people will not assume that you are a psychologist. They'll assume you're a stripper. And from what I hear, her background includes being a stripper. That's my understanding. I won't go into that, but that's what I have an understanding. So let's get this straight. This is what she's brought out. So if people have an issue with, so what's odd is her reaction to the reporter who said, why don't you drop the doctor? Well, because I earned it. Well, if you earned the PhD and you wrote a dissertation, which is necessary for any PhD, simply produce the dissertation and the PhD instead of coming up with a cockamamie story about not being able to get transcripts because the university you went to closed down, when in fact there's a third-party company that has transcripts and would have the records available, and not for only a year or two. So I doubt that Cheyenne Bryant will view this or see this, but this is what you should have done. And this is what you should do. See, I went to college, undergrad, never went to grad school, never got a PhD. But when somebody says, or people demand, if they don't demand, and they are curious about whether you have a PhD or not, it should be very simple. So this is my bachelor's degree. I went to a state school, my hometown. This is my bachelor's degree, as you can see. So this is the bachelor's. This is the original folder, which I keep it in. Got this folder many, many years ago, over 30 years when I graduated. This is the folder. Now, if indeed she had a PhD, one of the things she could have done is actually, or have it framed. She has it framed. She could do this. I keep mine in my original holder. This is what she can do. She can actually show the degree, or she can also show things that go along. Now, that was the degree. I got a bachelor's degree. And so here is the commencement program. And notice my name is right here. You can see my name right over here. Now, this may be backwards, but trust me, that's my name there. You could show a program like this, which contains your name and the degree that you hold, right? This has Bachelor of Arts degree, right? So again, put it up close. That is also what you could have done. Of course, program. This is what you could have done. Or this is what Cheyenne Bryant, gotta get her name right, she'll get upset. That's what she could have done as well. But apparently she chose not to do that. See, when people question your credentials, it should be as simple as, if not showing them outright, then showing in some way that you obtained them. Now, isn't it convenient that this woman claims to have a PhD from a college that doesn't exist anymore, and certainly couldn't get the records and transcripts, but she said she had already downloaded the transcripts. So if she did that, what's the problem? See how the story is so contradictory and slightly. Again, this is a person I did not know, but again fits the pattern. The egotism, the grandiosity, the arrogance. I'm the most sought after psychology, or I'm the most sought out psychology expert, life coach in the world. And then you pivot. Call yourself a doctor of psychology. At one point, I think she mentioned she was a therapist in one interview, one aspect on tape. Of course, she now says psychology expert, which means nothing. And life coach, a worthless profession as far as I'm concerned. Now, some people may not want to hear that, but that's true. But that's the way I feel. There's no regulation on life coach. Anyone can be a life coach. I don't even know what life coach means. Do you really need a coach for your life? Up to you. Anyway, that's all I have to say about this Cheyenne Bryant. It's pretty clear to me that this woman really is no PhD and is living out a fantasy. Now, I'll leave you on this. She mentioned that the reason why maybe she's been successful is because people say she's successful. This is what she was asked in one interview. Because she's pretty, and she is attractive, no doubt about that. She stated, I've learned there's pretty privilege. I've learned there is a pretty punishment. Well, if there is a pretty punishment, Cheyenne Bryant, you're getting it right now. Because what you did in pretending to be a psychologist and a therapist is pretty dumb. Bye, folks.